How you feeling on the gambling side going into March Madness, of course, just around the corner with the SEC tournament next week, and then, of course, we'll get in the real thing in a couple weeks.
Yeah, look, it's tough. Betting basketball is tough in general. There's so many variables that there's a lot more that can happen, I think, in basketball games than in football games over a 4-quarter period. In basketball, obviously, it's 2 halves. And the parity right now is at an incredible level. I've found I've had kind of more success with the overs and unders, kind of going towards the pace of play. Took the under last night. Or Wednesday night in the Tennessee South Carolina game, and that one hit, and it never really stressed that one. Typically take overs in the Big East, when I get a chance to. But going into this NCAA tournament from a betting standpoint, I mean, you got to ride a lot of the underdogs. You just have to, because the parity's at such an all-time high, and we know. Look, there's 12 seeds that are going to beat 5 seeds out there. There's a 13 that's going to beat a 4. Hell, I've seen a 16 beat a 1. We both have, but it's outside of Houston, Tennessee, and UConn. I still don't trust Purdue. I know people say, "Oh, how can you trust Tennessee but not Purdue?" I actually think this Tennessee team is a little bit different with what Dalton Connect has. It's going to be wild. We're going to do a bracket challenge. Right now, I'm sticking to the totals, and they've done really well so far. I don't want to jinx it. And college basketball, man, it can, it's not Zoolander. It can turn both ways really quickly.
Jake, sticking with college basketball, you mentioned Tennessee, of course, go into Colonial Life Arena, beat South Carolina in a really competitive back-and-forth game. They are officially the SEC regular season champions. But when you look at the big dance, I know the SEC tournament's going to happen. That's going to be a lot of fun. But it's all about March Madness and the tournament, if you will. Who are some teams you look at and you really like that you think can make a run? Doesn't have to be the favorites, but, of course, Tennessee, Auburn, Kentucky, Bama, maybe South Carolina are up there. Who are some teams maybe at the top or throughout the conference that'll be in the tournament that you're fading when you look at the scenarios and the overall potentials of these teams in March Madness specifically? Who do you like? Who do you dislike?
Yeah, well, to your first point, the Tennessee game, I hope this doesn't take anything away from what Lamont Paris has done with this South Carolina program and the way that he's turned it around. I mean, I think what him and, you look at Todd Golden as well at Florida, it's just been unbelievably impressive. I still think Lamont Paris, should be the SEC Coach of the Year. When it comes to I'll start with teams that I like, teams that, everybody's not at the forefront of everyone's mind, the obvious picks. Speaking of Florida, I really like Florida. I feel like they're playing their best ball of the year. They've got a little bit of everything. They've got old guards with Clayton and Pullen. Richard's been stepping up. They've got a bunch of young Groots, but they're Groots for sure with Samuel and Hanglockton and the rest of the white redwoods that they got running around there. They rebound really well. They're communicating better on defense. I think Florida, if given the right scenario, could make a very surprising run that if people aren't on them yet. Looking around kind of who else could be a problem. South Florida, I've been big on for going on this last month. I like the way they play. I think they're a little bit scrappier than what people think. They're not just one of these teams that goes out and just tries to outscore everybody. Illinois, it's hard for me to trust them defensively. I know they just lost to Purdue, but with Shannon's ability to score, DeMaz, the experience that they have, Coleman Hawkins, who's kind of a tweener. I think this is Brad Underwood's best group that I can remember in a while. I think they got a chance. Now, as far as fading teams, Purdue, that's an easy one for me. I don't trust them. Arizona, don't trust them. Don't trust them as far as I can throw them. Look, I like Mark Few and Gonzaga. Tommy Lloyd is an assistant of his, is now the head coach at Arizona. But outside of 1 year at Gonzaga with Jalen Suggs and Drew Timme and every other, somewhat athletic white guy with high socks and a high IQ, they typically don't go very far. And Arizona's kind of fallen under that same trap. I just don't think they play defense well enough. But look, I mean, at some point, Grand Canyon, App State, those are some names to keep an eye on. I'm sure there's some team named after a saint that has like 1,100 students that'll make a run at some point. But, out of the teams that have, Auburn to me seems like the Tennessee teams of the past, right? They can put the Mega Ranger together, but they don't have the Red Ranger. Like in Tennessee, he's got the Red Ranger. It's Dalton Connect. Oh, no, we're in a rut. Nobody's scoring. Well, just give it to Diet Luca and let him go to work. So the FAU, I don't fall for that trap again this year. They're not sneaking up on anybody. But I'll tell you what, Chris, I watched UConn play. I know Marquette didn't have Tyler Kolek last night. UConn just they're just a problem. They're just a problem. They've got everything. They've got monsters. They've got witches. They've got warlocks. I mean, hell, they've got dwarfs that can score. They've got everything.
You mentioned Tennessee, Jake. I want to go back to them, the Volunteers. You know, the last couple of years, it's just these early exits that have just haunted Tennessee basketball. Do you think they finally have the team with Dalton Knecht to break through? And I mean, is this team good enough to win a national championship?
Oh yeah, they're good enough to win a national championship. I think they're going to make the Final Four. Yeah, look, Dalton Knecht's the difference. We've seen Tennessee have really good teams, right? We've seen the Grant Williams, the Admiral Schofields, right? I mean, heck, it wasn't that long ago when Vescovy was considered one of the best guards. Obviously, Ziegler got hurt last year, but they always, at some point in that tournament, they're going to be tough on defense. They're going to play hard. But there's always been those times in the tournament where they hit those scoring ruts, right? I mean, I led the show off with Tennessee and their struggles in the NCAA tournament. When they've lost, they've scored like 55, 56, 62, 68. They had that one like double loss in overtime, a double OT loss to Purdue where they scored 94 points, but, you know, they played 2 extra periods, I believe. So Dalton Knecht automatically gets them out of that rut. I'll give you a great example. Last night against South Carolina, dude just hits 3 threes in a row. Not like a rebound kick out. Like he got the ball, went to the 3-point line 3 times in a row. Everybody in God knew what was going to happen, and he still made it. So they don't go through these same ruts. Now, the couple times where they have, you go Alabama on the road, for instance, where Dalton only scored 13. Ziegler can go get it. Like Vescovy, when he's on, can go get it. But Adu down low, I think, has changed them, not only just from a defensive standpoint, but his ability to make the 15 to 7 foot jump shot consistently gives them so much more operating space down low. It creates so much more space because now the 5 has to come out. They can do so many things offensively. Yes, I do think Tennessee is good enough to win a national championship. To be honest with you, out of the 1 seeds, I would probably put Tennessee 2 behind UConn right now.
Jake, what's your confidence level in your bracket this year? Are you somebody that typically does pretty well when it comes to brackets, or are you one of those guys that, like me, I feel like most years it's like midway into day one, and I'm like, this is just crumple it up, throw it away, start over, it's over.
Well, my problem is I keep up with it. Like I use logic. That's the problem. Anybody that does that you don't win. That's how it is. You know who wins is when I ask my wife who to pick. And she says, "Oh, hey, honey, you should pick Florida Atlantic because I love owls." Like that's who wins. It's the blonde secretary of the office. And everybody that's watching or listening to this knows exactly what you may once every blue moon run into a really good bracket. You know, my goal was just how many of the Elite 8 can I get, right? Because that's when the points are at the highest. You're going to have upsets. You know, you're sitting there, and I will give this advice. There's a couple things I've noticed. One, when they talk about the 12-5 seed upset, there's always at least one 12-5 upset, but it's typically never the one they say. It's like the other one. Like I remember last year or 2 years ago, it was all about, I think North Dakota State was a 12, and they're definitely going to beat this team that's a 5. Well, what happens is that 5 seed hears about that all week. So there's no sneaking up on that team. The coach is like, look, Seth Greenberg says we're going to lose to Vermont. So y'all better not take these guys lightly. I know we may have to play, you know, Marquette in the second round if we win, but it's like the Richmond that beats Iowa, right? It's always that one, the one that's not talked about. So, look, I'm going to go into it. I'm going to fill out a million different brackets, number one. If you're going to let me fill out that many brackets and still be able to win money, I'm going to do it. But we're going to do a bracket challenge with Bet Online where we have one bracket. And it's all going to come down to, you know, do I trust what I have seen, or do I go full Joaquin Phoenix Joker? Like, those are your 2 options? And I'm actually leaning toward Joaquin right now.
I might have to throw my bracket in the mix, by the way. So if you see,
of course,
believe
me, the invite was going to be.
Yeah,
was going to be.
There you go. I love that.